Social Security is not just a program, it is a lifeline. For millions of Americans, it represents stability in an uncertain world, a monthly deposit that pays for rent, food, medicine, and the basic dignity of independence. When people hear that Social Security accounts are being rechecked, they instinctively feel a jolt of fear, because what is really being questioned is not paperwork, but survival. Most recipients assume that once they are approved, their status is secure, that the system has verified everything it needs, and that payments will simply continue as long as they are alive. That assumption used to be mostly true, but it is becoming less reliable as new data-driven verification systems quietly take over. Right now, behind the scenes, Social Security is undergoing one of the largest data reconciliation efforts in its history. Records that were once stored in isolated systems are being merged, cross-checked, and compared against information from the IRS, the Department of Homeland Security, state agencies, and even private contractors. The official explanation is fraud prevention and accuracy, but the practical effect is that millions of accounts are being reviewed by automated systems that are far less forgiving than human caseworkers ever were. This is where the danger begins. When a human reviewed your file, they could recognize context. They could see that a name variation, a missing middle initial, or an old address did not mean you were ineligible. An algorithm does not see context. It sees mismatches, and mismatches are treated as risks. When risk crosses a certain threshold, payments are flagged for review, suspended, or delayed until the issue is resolved. For someone living on a fixed income, even a short delay can be devastating. What most people do not realize is that these rechecks are not being triggered by wrongdoing in most cases. They are being triggered by data conflicts. A Social Security record might list a different spelling of your name than the IRS. A tax filing might show a different address than what Social Security has. A Medicare record might not line up perfectly with your Social Security file. Each of these discrepancies is small on its own, but when they are combined in a unified system, they can look like evidence of inaccuracy or even fraud. The timing of this matters. Over the next few years, the government is under intense financial pressure. Social Security trust fund projections, political battles over spending, and rising benefit costs have created an environment where oversight is tightening. Rechecking accounts serves two purposes. It identifies genuine errors, but it also reduces payouts by suspending or delaying accounts that cannot be instantly verified. That saves money in the short term, even if some of those accounts are eventually restored. This is why people are already seeing letters, notices, and online alerts asking for documentation that was never required before. Proof of identity, proof of residency, proof of citizenship, proof of income. These requests are often framed as routine updates, but they are part of a much larger verification sweep. If you respond quickly and correctly, you may never notice a problem. If you miss a deadline, misunderstand a request, or fail to provide exactly what the system expects, your account can be marked for suspension. The groups most at risk are not the ones committing fraud. They are the ones with complex lives and long histories. Seniors who have moved multiple times, people who changed their names after marriage or divorce, immigrants who became citizens, and workers who had periods of self-employment all tend to have records that are more complicated. Complexity is the enemy of automation. The more complex your story, the more likely the system is to get confused. There is also a digital divide at play. Many of these rechecks are being handled through online portals and electronic communication. If you are not comfortable with computers, if you do not check your email regularly, or if you have limited internet access, you are more likely to miss important notices. The system does not care why you did not respond. It only knows that you did not. Another factor that is quietly influencing these reviews is data sharing with immigration and tax authorities. Social Security numbers are now being used across multiple agencies to verify identity and eligibility. If one agency has information that does not match another, that inconsistency can trigger a review. For example, if your tax return shows income that Social Security does not have on file, or if an immigration database shows a status update that has not been reflected in your benefits record, the system may flag your account. Once an account is flagged, it enters a different track. Instead of routine processing, it becomes a case that must be cleared. During that time, payments can be reduced, delayed, or stopped. Even if you are fully eligible, the burden shifts to you to prove it. That is a stressful and time-consuming process, especially for people who rely on every check. This is why the phrase rechecked should not be taken lightly. It does not mean someone is casually looking at a file. It means your digital identity is being compared across multiple systems that were never designed to agree perfectly. In that environment, errors are inevitable, and when errors occur, real people pay the price. In the next section, we will explore exactly which categories of recipients are being scrutinized most heavily and why some people are far more likely to lose payments than others. When these rechecks are discussed publicly, they are often framed as broad and neutral, as if every Social Security recipient is being treated the same. In reality, the system does not look at everyone equally. It uses risk profiles, data patterns, and eligibility rules to decide where to focus. That means some groups are far more likely to be reviewed, questioned, or temporarily cut off than others, even if they have done nothing wrong. One of the highest risk categories is people who receive Social Security while also having other income. This includes part-time workers, people with small pensions, rental income, or investment distributions. The Social Security Administration receives income data from the IRS, but it does not always match what is in its own records. When those numbers differ, the system flags the account. Even small discrepancies can matter. A few $100s that was reported differently can be enough to trigger a review because the algorithm is looking for consistency, not intent. Another group that faces increased scrutiny is people who receive disability benefits. Disability programs have some of the strictest eligibility rules, and those rules are increasingly enforced through data matching. Employment records, tax filings, and even medical billing data can be used to see if a recipient's situation has changed. If the system detects activity that suggests someone might be able to work, it may initiate a recheck. That does not mean the person is no longer disabled. It means the system wants proof, and until that proof is provided, payments can be interrupted. Non-citizens and naturalized citizens are also more likely to be reviewed. Social Security relies on immigration data to verify eligibility, and those databases are frequently updated. If your status changed years ago, but one system has not fully caught up, the mismatch can look like a problem. People who have lived in the United States for decades are sometimes shocked to discover that their records are still being compared against old immigration files. A single outdated entry can put an account on hold. Widows, widowers, and people who receive survivor benefits are another vulnerable group. These benefits depend on the work history of a spouse, and that information must be linked correctly. If there is any confusion about dates, names, or marital status, the system may pause payments until the issue is resolved. For someone who has just lost a partner, dealing with a bureaucratic review can feel overwhelming. There is also a growing focus on people who live abroad or spend significant time outside the United States. Some Social Security benefits are affected by residency rules, and data from border agencies and passport records is now being used to monitor travel patterns. If the system believes someone is spending too much time overseas, it may flag the account for review. Again, this does not mean the person has violated any rule, but it does mean they may have to prove that they have not. What ties all of these groups together is not wrongdoing but complexity. The more variables in your life, the more likely it is that some piece of data will not line up perfectly. The system treats that misalignment as risk. And because the system is designed to protect money first and people second, it responds by stopping or slowing payments until the risk is cleared. This creates a perverse incentive. The people who depend on Social Security the most are often the ones with the least ability to navigate these reviews. They may have health issues, limited mobility, language barriers, or limited access to technology. When a letter arrives asking for documentation within a certain number of days, missing that deadline can have serious consequences. It is also important to understand that these rechecks are not one-time events. They are part of an ongoing process. As new data is added to government systems, accounts can be re-evaluated repeatedly. That means even if you clear one review, another can be triggered later by a new piece of information. For example, a tax return filed this year could create a discrepancy that leads to a review next year. Many people are surprised to learn that Social Security does not always notify you before taking action. In some cases, payments are reduced or suspended first, and the notice comes after. From the agency's perspective, this prevents overpayments. From the recipient's perspective, it feels like punishment without warning. Understanding whether you fall into one of these higher risk categories is the first step in protecting yourself. If you know that your situation is more complex, you can be more proactive about monitoring your account, responding quickly to notices, and keeping your records up to date. In the final section, we will focus on what you can do right now to reduce the chances of losing payments and how to respond if your account is flagged. The reality of these rechecks is that they are not going away. As government systems become more connected, the pressure to verify, validate, and reconcile every account will only increase. That means the smartest approach is not to hope you are overlooked, but to make sure that when your account is reviewed, it passes cleanly. Preparation does not require panic, but it does require attention. Start by understanding what information Social Security has on file for you. This includes your name as it appears in their system, your Social Security number, your date of birth, your current address, your marital status, and any records related to your work history or benefits. Many people assume this information is correct because it has been correct in the past, but records can drift over time as systems change and data is imported from other agencies. Logging into your online Social Security account or requesting a statement is one of the simplest ways to see what the system sees. If you notice anything that looks even slightly off, correct it now. A missing middle initial, an old address, or an outdated marital status might not seem important, but these are exactly the kinds of details that cause mismatches when data is compared across agencies. The goal is to make your identity as boring and consistent as possible from a data perspective. The less your records differ, the less likely the system is to flag you. Next, pay close attention to any mail, email, or online notices from Social Security. These communications are increasingly automated, which means they are easy to miss or misinterpret. Do not assume that something labeled as a routine update is unimportant. Often, these messages are part of a verification process, and missing a deadline can trigger a suspension. If you are unsure what a notice means, it is better to ask or get help than to ignore it. Documentation is your safety net. Keep copies of tax returns, benefit statements, immigration documents, marriage or divorce records, and anything else that could be used to verify your eligibility. When a recheck happens, the agency will often ask for specific proof. Having it ready can mean the difference between a brief delay and a long interruption in payments. If your payments are reduced or stopped, act quickly. The longer an account remains in a suspended or questioned state, the harder it can be to resolve. There are appeal processes and reconsideration requests available, but they take time. During that time, you may not be receiving the money you need. Responding promptly, submitting complete documentation, and following up regularly increases the chances of a faster resolution. It is also wise to seek assistance if the process becomes confusing. Legal aid organizations, senior advocacy groups, and even some local Social Security offices can help explain what is being asked and how to respond. You do not have to navigate the system alone, and trying to do so can be overwhelming, especially when your financial security is at stake. Perhaps the most important thing to remember is that a recheck is not the same as an accusation. It is a process driven by data, not by judgment. Many people who are flagged are ultimately found to be fully eligible. The problem is the gap between when the system stops payments and when that eligibility is confirmed. Preparing in advance reduces the chances that you will be caught in that gap. As stories spread about people losing benefits, it is easy to assume that the system is targeting or punishing recipients. In reality, it is following rules written for machines, not humans. Those rules value consistency above all else. By making sure your records are consistent, you align yourself with how the system works. Social Security was designed to provide stability, but stability in a digital age depends on data integrity. The more accurate and up-to-date your information is, the more secure your benefits will be. You may not be able to control when your account is reviewed, but you can control how prepared you are when that moment comes. In a time when every dollar matters, taking a few hours to check and clean up your records is one of the most practical steps you can take. It does not guarantee that you will never face a review, but it greatly increases the odds that a review will pass without disrupting your life. That peace of mind is worth far more than most people realize until it is threatened.